Hello and welcome back to our study of Peninei Halacha, the teachings of Eliezer Malamed Shlita. Here we are, Sof Shavua, Erev Shabbos Kodesh, Parshas Acharei Mos and Kedoshim. Second week in a row that we have a double parsha, the way the calendar falls this year. Another one coming up soon enough as well. In the meantime, please continue davening for Chalei Tzva Gan Yisrael, Refuah Shlema L'chol Petzuei Yisrael, and a safe return of our hostages. And we learn L'ilei Nishmas Seren Daniel Shimon Arav Teron V'Sheli Hasham Yakum Damo. So we started a conversation about Nusach, and then the next chapter, which might be something we would entitle Nusach Wars. People are very, very protective over their Nusach, and that's Mesorah, and rightfully so. So let's see what the Rav has to say. Ein lahashiv Nusach echad ke'adif mechavero. So the title itself just speaks and says, one should not consider one Nusach to be superior to another. Kosav HaChida b'Shem Ha'ari. The Chida writes in the name of the Ari. So just the Chida, Chaim Yosef David Azulai, the Chida, who is a prolific writer. The story about the Chida and when he lived, which was in the late 1700s. He died in the early 1800s. But he was born in Yerushalayim, but as a fundraiser, he used to go around to different communities all over the world, particularly in Europe at the time, and he had a prolific memory, and it wasn't like everybody had all these svarim to go around, so whenever he would go somewhere, he would review the rabbi's or the Rav's library in the svarim, and he would memorize it, and he quotes, therefore, in his svarim, he quotes so many opinions, ones that you never heard of, but he was able to see it firsthand. So the Chida writes in the name of the Arizal, Shetfilas Nusach HaSvardim Ola B'chol Shnei Masar Sharm. So we mentioned yesterday that the 12 gates mentioned at the end of Sefer Yecheskel, but it's the 12 windows that the Arizal said from the 12 tribes. So he says that the Tefillah of Sfard goes to all 12 gates. And he says, therefore, an Ashkenazi person, if he wants, could switch to Nusach Sfard, or real Sfard. The question is, are you allowed to switch Nusach? And he quotes this from two different Sfarim, from, of course, the great Rav Ovadia Yosef, Zecher Tzadak Levracha, who wrote prolifically, particularly about Sephardic law and custom. The problem is that the Hasidim, they taina that their Nusach, again, the difference between Sepharad, it's also confusing, Sepharad and Nusach Sfard, very, very different. We say Sfarad, we mean Edona Mizrach, real Sephardic, what we would say, as opposed to Nusach Sfard, with Hasidim daven. Hasidim claim that their Nusach is actually better. Shken Gedolei HaChasidus bachanu badku nuschim rabim, api halacha, api kavanas HaKabbalah, because the great leaders of Chasidus, they carefully examined and tested all the different nuschos based on halacha and on Kabbalah, and they chose the best one, and that's how we have Nusach Sfard. And the Ashkenazim feel that no, of course, their Nusach is the most precise. Because we have a transmission already back to the period of Shimon HaPakuli, all the time of the Gemara and the Mishnah. The foundation of Minik Sfard goes back to the Amoraim, period of the Gemara and the Gaonim in Babylonia. And the foundation of the custom of Ashkenaz goes to the Amoraim and the Gaonim in Israel, who were more precise and more expert in Agada and understanding the secrets of the Nusach HaTfilah. In other words, each is very possessive over his Nusach, and each claims that his is superior. Agav, he says, actually, this is the reason why there are many comparisons between Nusach Ashkenaz and the Nusach of the original Yemenite Nusach, Baladi, because the influence comes originally from Israel. Kimuvan, Shegam Bale Nusach Teman, So you can also imagine that the Taimani, the Yemenites, want to jump into the fray, and they're going to say that their Nusach is the most exact. Because all the Jews of Yemen, in all the period of their exile, they never moved one iota from their place. U'keneged redifas arvim higbiros actionusam, u'shimru es minhagehem bekapdanus yisera. And even though they were chased around and tortured and persecuted by the local Arabs, they only strengthen the observance of their minhagim with great stubbornness. V'chein sifrei haTorah temanim nimtzu kerovim b'yosef b'diukam l'nusach keser aram tzova hamaduyak. And therefore, the Torah scrolls of the Yemenites are the most exact, certainly to the Nusach of what we call Aram Tzova, which is the most exact as well. I don't recommend flying into Yemen today, by the way, to go find out any more information, but that's just a little aside. If you were even able to fly into Yemen. V'hamevin yavin. Klalo shel davar. So here's the principle. Everybody thinks theirs is right. So what's the principle? L'chol minhag Yisrael mishalo, v'em b'kochenu lachrei eze minhag meshubech yoser. Every minhag has its strength, and every minhag has its followers and has its pluses, and we don't have the ability to make a decision which is better or which is more praiseworthy. V'chen kosav b'shut Chasam Sofer, the Chasam Sofer writes in his Shalos and Tshuvas, shekol hanusachim shavim, that all the nuschos are equal. V'zeh sha'ari chibras kamaraso al nusach sfard humnei shahay ragel hispalabo. And that Rizal wrote, that nusach sfard or sefard is the one that gets to the 12 gates, the 12 windows, because that's what he used to daven. The Arizal, who's in Israel, had he been found in Eastern Europe, in Ashkenaz, in Germany, he would have davened that. He would have written all of these Kabbalistic intonations, again, based on Ashkenaz. And even though if we know one is more precise, as we mentioned yesterday, still, people should continue in their custom. Because even in the lesser precise nuschos, there are still fine points which are not found in the more precise, as we'll go on and see perhaps more in detail as we continue this sugya. And only after we raise the Sanhedrin again, one day the great court will be established again, only then will we have the ability to make one unified Nusach. Hakolol as hanakudos hatova shebechol haminhagim, that will include all of the fine points of every Nusach. V'adayin yeh makom l'digashim shonim b'tosefes tfilos of mangino shonos keneged yud beis hasharim kol kihilo lefmi inyana. And we'll still have months, so we still have plenty of room for all these different points with different tfilos and different tunes, and each one will correspond to the 12 prayers. So it's almost like the 12 gates, the 12 windows. It gives us 12 avenues of approach. So no one is better than the other. Each is right. The important thing is that one should follow the custom of one's parents. We'll see what happens if, let's say, you have one custom and you're davening where someone has a different custom. That's a whole other story, but a great way to end our week. So thank you so much for watching. Wish you all a peaceful and restful Shabbos. Continue davening for Chayli Yitzchak and Israel for Shalom Chol Pitzui, Israel and safe return of our hostages. Ili Nishmat Saren Daniel Shimon Rav Jerome Michelle Yishem Gam Damo. Thank you so much for listening. Please join us here next week as we continue more Talmud Torah. Shabbat Shalom.